What's going on, everybody? It's me, Ben Cornett. I am live here on Facebook, Ben Zone, also on my YouTube channel, Ben Cornett 9015. This is episode 90 of Have At It. It is Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. How is everybody doing tonight? I'm doing pretty good. Originally, so it's pretty funny. I was gonna do a show today, thought about it all morning, but then I had a long day at work, and I had stuff to do after work. I'm like, maybe I'll put it off tomorrow night. But then after I settled in for a little bit, I'm like, no, you know what? I feel good. Let me pop on here tonight and talk some sports. We've got a big weekend coming up with the Final Four. We know who's in now: Florida, Auburn, Duke, and Houston. All four of those teams are number one seeds. It's only the second time that this has happened in Final Four history. The other time was back in 2008. It was Kansas, Memphis, uh, UCLA, and North Carolina. So, yeah, it's only happened the second time, and which I think is pretty cool actually, because we get to see the top four number one seeds go at it and see who the very best team is in college basketball. The matchups are going to be Auburn against Florida. That's an SEC matchup. They're going to meet for a third time, as well as we got Houston and Duke. Should be a very good game too. Good to see Cooper Flag play. Yeah, it should be all these matchups should be really, really good. Both of them can't wait to see. All four of these teams got very good, starting lineups. With Duke, obviously, I mentioned, Cooper Flag, Proctor. For Houston, you got Manuel Sharp, Joseph Tuggle, Milo Uzon, Roberts. You know, great players on both teams. As far as Auburn and Florida, they got incredible players as well. Walter Clayton, Will Richard, Alex Condon for Florida. Um, you know, for Auburn, you got Jahan Broom, Player of the Year. He had an elbow injury in the game against Michigan State. They've been looking at it all week. Apparently, he says he's feeling good. He's good to go. So that's good news for Auburn because they're going to need him. Um, you know, he's very important on that team. He's the straw that stirs the drink, as they say. You got other great players too on Auburn: Denver Jones, Pettiford, um, you know, Baker Mazzaria. They got a great backcourt. So all four of these teams are pretty much evenly matched. Um, in my bracket, I had the national title game as Auburn and Houston. I am going to stick with that. So that's who I think will win their games on Saturday. It'll be Auburn over Florida and Houston over Duke. And then we'll have Auburn, Florida Monday night for the national title. I did pick Auburn to win it all, and I still think they will. I just think they're the most complete team in college basketball, and they've just been very consistent all year. So that's my pick. Let me know in the comments section who you guys think is going to take it all on Saturday and Monday. So it should be fun. Cannot wait to watch the Final Four. Like I said, all four teams are number one seeds, so it makes it that much more fun to watch. More competitive as well. I know a lot of fans like having that Cinderella be in the Final Four, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I do like the fact that we got all four number one seeds because we'll get a good look at to see who is the best team in college basketball. So you couldn't ask for a better Final Four, in my opinion. With that being said, switch gears a little bit here. We did get some unfortunate news this week. A couple actors passed away. Richard Chamberlain passed away. He was 91 years old. Didn't really know Richard Chamberlain that well. It was kind of before my time, but he did a lot of movies. movies around the 60s and 70s. Um, but the one I didn't know very well growing up was Val Kilmer. The late Val Kilmer passed away, unfortunately, at 65 years old. Um, God, I mean, he was Iceman, Tom Kinsiski, the Iceman from Top Gun, him and Maverick, Tom Cruise, and Val was in the movie Top Gun Maverick as well. And he was having his problems with his throat cancer. He had, I forget what they call it. He had surgery on his throat. Forget the name of it, but he had that a couple times. Um, they had to do like some special like work voiceovers, so you couldn't tell that he had a problem with his voice. But um yeah, it's just real sad. Just only 65. That's very young. My mom's only 65, so you know it is too young. Lost a great actor. I mean, not just movies like Top Gun. He was also in Real Genius. Chris Knight, remember him? The kind of the slacker genius. That was a good movie as well. And probably his best role for many in many people's opinions was Doc Holliday in Tombstone, which is I'm not a big cowboy movie fan, but it was a good movie. He played that part very well. It just shows you how much range he has as an actor. Uh, you know, Obviously he was Jim Morrison, The Doors. Um, that was a great movie as well. He did a very good job portraying the late Jim Morrison. Um, so that was a great movie as well. And of course, you had him in Batman Forever. Now, I will admit that wasn't my. I thought he was. I don't want to say the worst Batman because he's passed away. I don't want to degrade him like that. I'll just say he's the least favorite of my Batman fandom. So, because I think what happened was it was supposed to be um, Michael Keaton. He was going to do another Batman movie, but I guess he bailed out at the last second for contract dispute or creative differences. I'm not sure how that went down. There's a lot of stories on that over the years, but uh, then they casted Val Kilmer as Bruce Wayne and Batman. So again, not my favorite, but it is what it is. So um, yeah, but Val Kilmer is great, and every movie he did, every role he played was really good. He did it to the best of his ability, and just he knew how to act. He knew how to, you know, get you interested in his character, which you know a lot of great actors do. I mean, Tom Hanks is a great actor. Um, Steve Martin, you know, Denzel Washington. I'm just naming a few off the top of my head that are just actors that no matter what role they play, they're you can invest in them because they know how to play that role. And like I said, the roles he played, Jim Morrison, Doc Holliday, Iceman, he just did such a great job, you know, portraying those roles and making you invest in them and making you interested in the movie. That's what great actors do. Just great character work, and he's definitely going to be missed. Um, Again, if I had to pick a movie for you guys to watch, um, if you haven't seen Val Kilmer's work, especially you younger people out there, watch a movie like Top Gun, Tombstone, The Doors. Those are movies that he's just does a great job in. Um, his character just shines through the screen. Just such a smart actor as well. Just comes across as genuine and a real nice guy outside of Hollywood. Nothing but great things to say about him. He, again, just an incredible actor, but an incredible human being as well. And he is going to be missed. So rest in peace, Val Kilmer. So yeah, that was my tribute to him. Again, if you just tuned in, we are episode 90 of Have At It. We're on YouTube at Ben Cornet 9015, as well on Facebook in the Ben Zone Facebook group as well. So, with that being said, we got a lot of NFL news coming out this week. Most notably, today here in Vegas, where I live, the Las Vegas Raiders gave Geno Smith, quarterback, an extension, 2-year extension worth $85 million. He's on the final year of his contract that he had with Seattle, which pays him about $30 million a year currently. So he's getting a $85 million extension for the next 2 years. It's $65 million guaranteed. This pretty much tells you they're not going to draft a quarterback in the first round, at least in the first round. They're not going to go after Shador or Cam Ward. I mean, obviously those guys will probably be gone by the time the Raiders select anyway at number 6. And the Raiders don't seem like they want to move up to get a quarterback. So they feel like Geno Smith can at least lead this team, this Raiders offense, for the next year or two. Personally, I mean, Geno's not a bad quarterback. I don't think he's a guy that you can build your future around. He's 34. He's had some great moments in the past couple years. He's made some great plays, but he's also made some, key mistakes, some bad throws that leads to interceptions, turnovers. Geno's one of those guys I feel like it's better not to blitz him as a defense because Geno does not play well when he has to think inside the pocket. That's where his mistakes come in. I'm surprised a lot of defenses, don't adjust to that more. They blitz a lot, but Geno, it's a little bit different. You want to make him think out there because when he thinks it costs him. It gets him in trouble. So, a lot of times quarterbacks in the pocket love having that time. They could, get the plays in, make the throws, let the plays develop. With Geno, he seems to do better, when he has to react right away for some reason. I don't know. It's just he's one of those few quarterbacks that does better when he actually gets blitzed. So I'm surprised defenses haven't, done more to maybe not bring the defense, kind of hold them back a little bit and make them think out there. Maybe send only 3, to rush them. So, but anyway, Geno's got a new contract, and we'll see how it plays out. I think as far as draft wise, Raiders may, there's been talks about Raiders taking, Genty in the first round, the running back out of Boise State, which I think is a little high to do that, but we've seen the value of a running back the last few years. Obviously last year, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs. Now, granted, they've been in the league a while, and I'm not saying that Genty's going to be those type of running backs. He's going to be as good as them, but the running back position did make a good comeback last year. So, look at Bucky Irving for the Bucks. His rookie year paid off well. Now, I mean, he was drafted in, I believe, the 3rd round, but still, he made an impact. And with Genty, I mean, obviously, if he gets picked by the Raiders, it's a first round pick, a lot of pressure on him. But, I think he'd be a good fit for that offense, especially with Geno out there, with Abdullah, Brock Bowers as your weapons. he could use another weapon. So it would make a lot of sense. But at the same time, the Raiders need defensive guys too. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, it's pretty interesting that the Raiders are gonna give him a extend his contract. So we'll see how it plays out. And plus, quarterback draft, the QB draft this year. This group is not particularly great. Outside of Cam Ward and Shador Sanders, maybe Jackson Dart and Milrow. I mean, there's just really nothing out there. So next year is supposed to be according to a lot of scouts and experts, it's going to be a much better quarterback draft class. So maybe the Raiders are looking at 2026 to look there to find their future quarterback. So, but who knows if Geno plays well and helps this Raiders team play well offensively. Maybe they don't have to rush to get a quarterback right away, or they can draft a quarterback in later rounds. Develop him, have him sit for a year or two. So there's a lot of things they can do. A lot of options. So with that being said, him signing that contract extension tells us pretty much that he's going to be there for at least the next couple of years. We do have a comment in the section. Christopher Cole says, hey Christopher, how you doing tonight? He's watching on YouTube. Ben Cornet 9015. Thank you, Christopher, for tuning in. How you doing tonight, man? Speaking of Christopher Cole, like myself, he's a fellow Bucks fan, and with some news today, the Bucks the last couple days, they were restructuring both Baker Mayfield and Antoine Winfield's contracts. With these moves, they're obviously going to be saving up to about 16 million in cap room, or creates 16 million now in cap room. A lot of this is just, from what I'm seeing, it's based on making sure they have enough cap space to sign the rookies and maybe sign one more player, to a mid-level type of contract. That's all it is. It gives them a lot more space cap wise. And it's funny because I see a lot of people are, in the fan groups and stuff that are like, oh, it's great that Antoine and Baker are sacrificing money to help the team. No, what it is, it's the teams they can restructure these contracts if they want to. What they're doing is they're just going to give the money and turn it that they have in later years. They're just going to turn it into a bonus. Is mainly what they're doing. Now, the only thing is the Bucks will be on the hit for that. Whatever money they take out of what year they're taking it out of. Let's say they took 5-6 million out of Antoine Winfield's pay for 2026. They're going to be on the they're going to be on a brain fart there. The words to mouth aren't connecting right then. Sorry about that. The Bucks will be on the hit for that money because they're taking out that money and just convert it into a bonus. So they'll still be responsible for that cap hit. It's just, let's just say they're just kicking the can down the road a little bit. That's all. That's all it is. But at the same time, the salary cap has gone up each year, the last few years. So the Bucks will be fine. This is not a, oh my God, why do we got to restructure these contracts? Like, it's okay. They're just creating more cap room. They want to make sure that are cap compliant with their cap space. That's all it is. Because you got to sign your rookies, and that's pretty much all it is. So Baker and Antoine are going to get their money. Tristan Wirfs had to do the same thing this off season, so it'll be fine. They're going to still get their money. It's nothing to worry about. They're not sacrificing money. It's just they're getting it converted into a bonus. That's all it is. So yeah, the Bucks will be fine. Besides, we pretty much signed all our guys anyway that we wanted. We signed Chris Godwin, and that's another thing I want to sort of talk about. It's come out that Todd Bowles during the week at the NFL coaches meeting, I think that's what they call it. They interviewed Todd Bowles, and I'll just paraphrase, but it seems like Todd Bowles is saying the status on Chris Godwin, is he going to be ready um, to go week one? And again, I'm just paraphrasing it. Todd Bowles says he's not sure yet. They said we'll see. That's all. So I guess there's no timeline right now. It just depends on how quick he can recover from this ankle injury. So again, while it's not the end of the world kind of news, it's also kind of like, oh, we'll see how it goes, because the good thing is, look at the positives. Jalen McMillan, developed into a nice number 2 option last year. So, we always got him. We just re-signed Sterling Shepard. So we do got some depth in the wide receiver department. So we're not going to panic about that. Godwin will be ready when he's ready, and that's all we care about, is that he comes back fully healthy and ready to go. So yeah, that's pretty much it on the Bucks end of things. And again, as far as the draft goes, and we'll get into the draft, in another episode, because we still got a couple weeks, and we'll see how I'll do like a draft thing coming up on the next episode or the episode after, whenever, come up with a round 1 mock draft kind of thing. We'll see what happens. Christopher Cole, again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being in the comments section. He says some Bucks fans are thinking they're about to make a big move. It's not going to happen. Yeah, I mean, Chris, you're right. We've already made our moves. We signed our guys. Levante to a 1-year deal. Chris Godwin, we signed him, and we signed Hassan Reddick, defensive end, to a 1-year deal. Again, I like that move. It's only for 1 year. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if it does, then it's a high reward, low risk. That's how I look at it. And we desperately need a pass rusher. We just do. We've been begging for one for years. Joe Tryon-Shiank is just not the answer. So getting a guy like Reddick, I think, is going to be very helpful for us. Again, I know he held out with the Eagles and held out with the Jets, but maybe it's that experience he went through the last year or so, maybe it humbles him, and maybe that'll motivate him to play at a high level again. To see that Hassan Reddick we've seen prior to 2024. He played so well in 2023. Helped lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl. So, if we get that Reddick, or we get about 80% of that Reddick, then, I think this Bucks team is going to be very good defensively, and they're going to get multiple sacks on the quarterback, put a lot of pressure on the quarterbacks. So, yeah, I'm excited about it. And speaking of Kirk Cousins, yeah, he's wanting to be released by the Falcons. Their Falcons are planning on him not being at the off-season workouts. So it tells me that he wants out of there. Now the Falcons aren't just going to release him, from what I'm hearing, because they're still going to be on the hit for like the 20 some odd million he's going to get paid this year. So they want to try and trade him, but they want to try to have teams take on that contract. And the reality is, who would want to take on that contract? I mean, Kirk Cousins is like 36, 37, I think, coming off an Achilles injury from the year before, but also did not play well this year. Do they want to really pay that contract? I don't think so. The Browns, were a team that were interested, but now they're saying they don't want to pay that. Now, wouldn't it be like the Browns to take on another big contract? I mean, I could see them doing something like that, being that stupid to do that because of the Cleveland Browns. And Jimmy Haslam the owner of the Browns did say that this week he finally admitted it was a big mistake paying Deshaun Watson all that money, the worst contract in NFL history. I mean, you'd think. It only took you a couple years to figure that out. I mean, my goodness, Yeah, so I don't know. Kirk Cousins, the Falcons, they've moved on. They're going with Michael Penix Jr. Um, I just scares me a little bit. I'll be honest with you because I said before I think Michael Penix is. I know we had Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Penix, 4 quarterbacks in the top 10. Bo Nix, 5 quarterbacks in the top 15. Play well, and I do think Michael Penix is probably the best QB out of that class. I really do. Because I think he's got a great arm. The problem is he can't stay healthy. But he's shown you flashes in those 2 games that he played, or I think it was 2 or 3 games after he stepped in for Kirk Cousins. He showed you flashes that he can be good. So, but at the same time, it's the Falcons. They always seem to be they always seem to come up short. They always don't play as well as they should. I would say the team I'd be worried about in our division next year is Carolina. They're on the trajectory is starting to go up for them. Bryce Young, I know he got pulled earlier in the season last year, but then he got brought back in after Andy Dalton had that injury and that automobile accident. Bryce Young played well ever since. They re-signed Chuba Hubbard. They got some pieces. They need more pieces, but if Bryce Young can improve on his 2024 season, 2025, they could be a team to watch. I mean, look, last year in Carolina, we went to overtime with the Bucks did with the Panthers, and it took an Anthony Nelson strip fumble on Chuba Hubbard to get the ball back, and the Bucks to win on a game-winning field goal by McLaughlin. Otherwise, that who knows what could have happened. That was in December. So, who knows? If we'd have lost that game, that could have been huge. So Carolina's they got strong at the end of the year. I'll give them credit. They hung toe-to-toe with the Chiefs in that game last year. Went to, literally took them to overtime. So this team's on the up and up. So, that's the team I would be a little more worried about than Atlanta. So we'll see how it plays out. Some other stuff, Cardinals re-signed tight end Trey McBride. Gave him a 4-year contract extension. It's worth $76 million, 43 mil guaranteed. I think that's a good move by the Cardinals. Basically, you got your tight end locked up, for the next few years. Gives Kyler Murray his weapon of choice, along with Marvin Harrison Jr. They're gonna have to do a little bit more on offense. Try to get another lineman, maybe get another receiver. James Conner, the running back. That offense can do some stuff if they can stay healthy and Kyler can stay focused. So yeah, this is a good move by the Cardinals. Also, I heard something real quick that the Bengals could possibly relocate, and The reason I say that is because it was brought up in the multiple reports that the stadium lease, Paycor Stadium, I believe the name is, used to be Paul Brown Stadium. Now it's Paycor Stadium. Their lease with the team's lease with the stadium is up June 30th of 2026, so they got one more year on the lease. And there's been talk about, some tension between, it's been reported by many outlets, especially in the local Cincinnati area, that's been tension between the team and Hamilton County, which is what they call it in Cincinnati, where Cincinnati is located at Hamilton County. Um, that's interesting, and I think her name's Katie Blackburn, the team's vice president of uh, of team operations, uh, said that they've been bragging about it, that they're, saying there's possibilities that they could relocate. Um, that'll be interesting, but again, I think what'll end up happening is they'll come up with a deal. They'll, you know, everything will get smoothed out. It's just one of those things where it's, could be financially related. Um, maybe they have to do some renovations on the stadium, and that's another thing I forgot to mention. The Bucks, our Buccaneers, are looking to renovate Raymond James Stadium. The Glazers are looking into that. You know, renovations could very well happen, so that'd be cool. Um, we'll see where that lands. And I think Tampa's got a lot to worry about, in the Tampa area with the Rays. Their stadium situation. They're playing in Steinbrenner Stadium for the year. There's pictures of the Trop with the open sky. See the sky and everything, the damage. Like I said in the last episode, I really hope the Rays can get this figured out. Stay in Tampa, St. Petersburg area, wherever. Just stay in that area because I know baseball wants to keep them in there. Ron Manfred said that the commissioner of MLB says he wants to keep the team in Tampa. So, when you got the commissioner, backing you up, that is good news. So hopefully good things can come out of this. But we all know, especially Rays fans who know that, they know how Stu Sternberg is. So who knows? Hopefully things will turn out positive on that end. So, speaking of baseball, I mean, my Dodgers 7-0. Last night, Shohei Ohtani hit a game-winning home run. The bottom of the ninth. I know all the other fans in baseball are not happy about it, that we're off to this 7-0 start. Look, we're not going to go 162-0. We're not going to go 142-20. Don't worry about that. Still make the playoffs. We're still going to hopefully repeat as champions. We just have to stay healthy. And can Tyler Glasnow just stay healthy for one full season? That's all I ask. Same with Dustin May. I mean, he didn't pitch well last night, but I want him to stay healthy. All these guys, because we need him. Pitching, is key in the playoffs. So, and health, and getting hot at the right time as well. So, the Braves, I mean, God, 0-7 now, man. I didn't have that on my bingo card before the season started. But the Braves, look who they played. They played the Padres. They're 6-0, and the Dodgers are 7-0. So, both these teams have not lost a game yet. I mean, Dodgers and Padres undefeated still, but we know that'll end soon. But hey, enjoy it while we can. Atlanta, they have their home opener tomorrow against Miami, so they should be able to get a win or two out of that series. My Dodgers go to Philly for a big game, big series this weekend. That's always fun. Dodgers Phillies could be a preview of the playoffs. Then we're at Washington Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So our first road trip. See how it plays out. Let's see. Tampa Bay Rays fan, 2008. Thanks for tuning in, man. How you doing tonight? Because the Bucks are planning to renovate the stadium and they're leased in 2028. Plus, the Rays Stadium have their problems. Yeah, just mentioned that. So yeah, they're gonna Bucks gonna renovate the stadium. And like I said with the Rays, man, I just hope that Stu sells the team to another owner wants to keep the team in Tampa. I mean, they got to get that situated. Yeah, can't be playing in minor league ballparks forever. And also says their plans to refix the stadium by 2026 at the Trop. Yeah, I heard that. Uh, oh boy. um, yeah, I guess that's Stu being Stu. So it's unfortunate. So yeah, as far as baseball goes, I mean, again, it's the first week. Let's not panic. If your team's not doing well, unless you're like the A's or the A's, there's no need to panic. Everything will be fine. Your first weekend. Now we got the second week coming up. It's just the start of the season. Should be really good. And Christopher Cole, it says the NL West is loaded except for the Rockies. Yeah. Well, yeah, in Colorado, they're not that good. But yeah, Arizona playing pretty good right now. They're playing the Yankees tonight. I don't know what the score is on that. The Giants, they're okay. They'll be competitive. So you're right. Yeah, it's going to be a very loaded division. Well, like I said, it's if my Dodgers can stay healthy and just consistently play well and get contributions from everybody, not just Otani, not just Mookie or Freeman. Oh, by the way, Freddie Freeman's on the 10-day disabled list. He had a little incident at home. I think he fell out of the shower or something, hurt something, and he's not available for 10 days. So it's okay. I mean, we got Teoscar, we got Max Muncy. I didn't know this real quick. Maybe Tampa Bay Rays fan, Christopher Cole, maybe you know this, but did you know there are 2 Max Muncies in Major League Baseball? I didn't know that until I watched the A's game the other night against the Cubs. They had another Max Muncy. Now they're not related or anything like that, but I thought it was very hilarious that they have 2 guys in Major League Baseball named Max Muncy. And, that's also a weird, multiple name to have because, normally, like let's say like you had a couple of Charles Johnsons in baseball. You had like a name like that, a normal name like a Will Smith. You had a couple of Will Smiths in baseball. Not talking about the Fresh Prince, but you know what I mean. But Max Muncy is kind of a weird name, to have multiple players named Max Muncy. I just thought it was crazy. And Tampa Bay Rays fan says, "Yes, I know that." Okay. So yeah, I thought that was very weird. Um, yeah. So I don't know. So I pretty much covered everything I wanted to cover tonight. Um, not that many people are interested, but my Manchester United Red Devils yesterday lost to Nottingham Forest on after the 2-week holiday. Yes. Ugh, it's frustrating. Now, Nottingham Forest is one of the top 4 teams in the Premier League table. Manchester United, we're currently 13th. We got the derby this weekend against Manchester City at Old Trafford. And that's another thing. Speaking of new stadiums, uh, Manchester United is going to build a new stadium within the next few years. They're going to leave Old Trafford after I think over like 70, 80 years they've had that stadium. So yeah, they're going to have a new stadium, but they really need to get their crap together. Yeah, yesterday I saw some of that match. Garnacho, I don't know how many times he kicked the ball over the net, over the post. I mean, I think he kicked one that there's one ball that still hasn't landed yet. I mean, my goodness. But anyway, I mean, I know there's not a lot of soccer fans on there, but I just had to rant about my Red Devils. They come back, allow Nottingham Forest to get a goal in the first 6 minutes of the match, and they had their chances. United had their chances, shots on goal, just could not convert. So as far as the Premier League, Liverpool's way ahead right now in the points. They're not giving that up. Arsenal's second. I think Nottingham Forest is in third. So yeah, it should be interesting down the stretch. Real quick, for people who don't know the Premier League soccer, European soccer or any soccer really, but Premier League in particular, the top four play who finished 1 through 4, um, make it to the UEFA. They play in the UEFA tournament the following year. Number 5 and 6, number 5, whoever finishes 5th, plays in the FA Cup tournament or the Europa. I think it's the Europa. Yeah. And then the bottom 3, if you finish in the bottom 3 of your table, you get relegated, which means you get demoted to the lower league. Right now, currently Ipswich Town, Leicester City, and Southampton are the bottom 3. And it looks like those will be the 3 that will get relegated because they're the 16th, the 17th place team. Wolverhampton has like a 6-point lead on Ipswich Town. So it's funny because Ipswich Town, Leicester City, and Southampton were the teams that got promoted to Premier League from League One. So it looks like they'll get relegated, and teams like Leeds United and I know it's Leeds United, Burnley, and I believe it's Sunderland that are in the top 3 or 4. So that could get promoted to Premier League. So speaking of Sunderland, I don't know if anybody watched that documentary, Sunderland Till I Die on Netflix. Very good documentary. One of the better sports documentaries I've ever seen. So check that out. It talks about their demotion from Premier League back in 2018, I believe. They went down a couple leagues and they bounced back up to League One. So hopefully they could make it back to Premier League. That'd be cool. Yeah, so and then Wrexham, I think, the team that's owned by Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, um, you know, they are in League Two. They could be promoted to the Championship League next year. It would be their second straight promotion, which would be pretty cool. I didn't think they could get promoted that quickly because I thought they would kind of struggle a little bit, not struggle, but like not being able to make that top 3. Um, you know, but it's cool. It's cool for Wrexham. I'm glad, they've definitely been investing in, the money into it. Ryan Reynolds, Rob McElhenney have invested their money in it, and they're doing well with it. Same way with Birmingham City, who's their rival in League Two, and Birmingham Tom Brady has a piece of that ownership stake in Birmingham City, so and they could be promoted to Championship League this year, so that'd be pretty cool. And it's Championship League's the next level, and then one more is Premier League. So wouldn't that be cool if Wrexham got to Championship League and then got promoted again to Premier League? I mean, that ultimately that's the goal for the ownership of Wrexham, to get to Premier League. They have never been that high up on the in the league before, so that'd be cool. Anyway, I'm just ranting about soccer. I think people are tuned off by that, but not a Tampa Bay Rays fan. He's like, have you seen the 30 for 30 of the Liverpool FC story? The 96 fans died. Hillsborough, yeah, that's unfortunate. That was a very, very hard documentary to watch because that should never have happened. Security, the stadium was, in my opinion, was responsible for that. They didn't take the proper measures. Now, I'm not saying that there are a lot of fans had involvement in it too, but that was just a very, very unfortunate incident, because I believe that was the game they were supposed to play the FA Cup. I don't know if it was a semifinal. It was Liverpool. I think it was Nottingham Forest that they were supposed to be playing in that game. They started the game, but then they called it off after the fans started to get on the field, and all hell broke loose. And then that tragedy. But it was a pretty intense documentary. It's really sad. And Liverpool, um, they always play that song, "You Never Walk Alone." So at the end of games, um, yeah, just a very sad. I think recently the families got settlements out of that. Just recently, maybe a year or two ago. So yeah, it's very sad. Um, but it's a good watch if you want to watch if you like soccer documentaries. 1981 at the same place nearly happened. Yeah, yeah, it happened in where was it? Sheffield, I think. Right, Sheffield United in that stadium. I believe that was where it happened. Again, that stuff like that should never happen. I mean, but also the '80s were you know, very violent time in soccer. You had the hooligans and stuff like that. So yeah, yeah, very, very unfortunate. Oh man, this went from a great show to depressing because I was talking about the soccer stuff. um, yeah, so that's pretty much all I got tonight. You know, oh, we got one more. Let me read this comment here. One player who played in that FA Cup was Liverpool FC defender Steve Nicol. Played also coach in MLS for the New England Revolution. Oh, nice, nice, Steve Nicol. Yeah, yeah. In the '80s, Tampa Bay Rays fan, I didn't follow soccer, but it was more into like the early '90s when I started getting into it. As you know, Eric Katana, Andy Cole, um, David Beckham. That's when it started for me with soccer. Um, you know, my favorite era, Sir Alex Williamson or Sir Alex Ferguson, my best manager in soccer history, in my opinion. You know, um, Van Nistelrooy, one of my favorite United players, who ironically I think he coaches uh, Ipswich Town. I think Red Van Nistelrooy, he coaches. I think he's the manager for Ipswich Town, I believe. So, um, and I know Wayne Rooney. Oh, that Wayne Rooney was the man. He was the manager for Plymouth Argyle, but he got sacked, and um, then I think like a couple matches later, they upset Liverpool in the FA Cup quarterfinals. So yeah, how ironic. Wayne Rooney leaves and get a new manager, and they beat Liverpool. So how about that? There you go. Soccer's a crazy sport, but it's a fun sport. I love soccer. So then I started soccer, was indoor in the late '80s Chicago Sting when they left the North American Soccer League, went to the MISL. Okay, cool. Cool beans. Like that. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been a Premier League fan for almost 30 years now. Like I said, it started with me with United, Eric Katana, Andy Cole, David Beckham, you know, just great teams. You know, then we went through the Red Van Nistelrooy um, era where he had an amazing 2003. I think he scored like over 30 goals that year. Just was phenomenal. And we had Cristiano Ronaldo. Um, I mean, we got some solid players now. Bruno Fernandez, Garnacho, but I don't know, man. We need to get back to respectability and start getting back at the top of the table again in Premier League. So anyway, with that being said, I'm gonna take off, man. This was a lot of fun tonight. Like I said, this morning I woke up. I'm gonna do this show tonight, and then when I got home from work and running errands after work, I'm like, but then like an hour later I ate and like I feel good again. Let's do a show. So there you have it. Had at it tonight with this episode, episode 90. So I'll try and do a show maybe this weekend or early next week as we get closer to the NFL draft. I'll try and do a mock draft, maybe the next episode. So check that out. I'll read one more comment there from Tampa Bay Rays fan. I followed this thing because of guys like Karl Heinz, Granitza, Pato Marjetic. Hope I said that right. And they won the NASL championship in 1984. Oh, nice. Cool. Yeah, like I said, Tampa Bay Rays fan. It started for me with Manchester United. So been a fan ever since, through the good, through the bad currently. So yeah. So with that being said, everybody, I'm going to take off, but I want everybody to have a great weekend. Enjoy the Final Four if you can watch college basketball. And yes, I didn't know that. Las Vegas had an NASL team in 1977. Okay, well, it just shows you how out of the loop I was before I started watching soccer. So nice. Thank you for that, Tampa Bay Rays fan. Thank you for tuning in tonight, as well as Christopher Cole and everybody who watched. Appreciate it. And everybody have a great weekend. And I will see you next time right here on Have At It. Take care.